This is the Unstarving Musicians Podcast. The podcast features conversations with musicians and music industry professionals, all intended to help musicians be better at marketing, business, the creative process, and all the other things that empower us to do more of what we love, make music. Hey, it's your host Robonzo here. Thanks for tuning in. If you're an indie music artist or fan, you're in the right place. Whoever you are, I appreciate you. As a gigging musician and fan of live music, I am committed to sharing my personal expertise with you. I'm also committed to learning about and sharing the expertise of other music professionals, which is what I do here on the podcast, extract that expertise. If you'd like to be privy to what I'm learning, hop over to unstarvingmusician.com and join the community. You'll get an email from me, usually weekly, with tips, tricks, insights, and secrets intended to make your music journey a little better and brighter. I'll never send you anything spammy, and you can unsubscribe at any time. If you'd like to support the podcast, please subscribe on Apple Podcasts, also known as iTunes. The podcast and this episode are powered by the Unstarving Musician's Guide to Getting Paid Gigs, How to Get Booked and Paid What You're Worth Over and Over Again. It was written by me, and it's available on Amazon, Kobo.com, and one day soon, Apple iBooks, when I can finally figure out how to publish it there. The book is also available as a standalone podcast called the Unstarving Musician's Guide Podcast. You can learn more about the book and the companion podcast at unstarvingmusician.com/book. I'd love it if you picked up a copy, and I'd love it even more if you left a review. Right. SHAPESCENES is a reference to Synesthesia. My guest in this episode is Chase Anderson, lead singer and guitarist for the Austin-based band SHAPESCENES. Chase had this thing when he was a kid where he would listen to music and then notes, tones, and chords would be represented by specific complex shapes and color combinations that would appear as closed-eye visuals. He referred to those visuals as SHAPESCENES. Chase was recommended to me by Brian Wolf, who was recently featured in episode 55 of this podcast. You should check it out. Chase's band is on the cusp of officially releasing an EP called Empyrean Heaven, which you'll be able to find on all of the major music services, including Bandcamp and on shapescenes.com. Chase and I talk about touring, PR, releasing new music, and the evolution of his band. Chase is a pro musician, but he's got his talented hands in all kinds of stuff, including some serious life stuff. Toward the end of our chat, we talk about the Health Alliance for Austin musicians, his personal experience with them, and mental health among musicians in general. I'm really grateful that he was open and willing to discuss this topic. I hope that it makes for good listening at just the right time for some of you. Oh, and I almost forgot, at the end of our conversation, you get to hear a track called Urgency from the forthcoming Empyrean Heaven. Here's my chat with Chase Anderson. Chase, welcome to the show.
Hi, how's it going?
It is going really well, man. I appreciate you taking out time to speak with me this evening.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for reaching out and having me.
When you took my call, you said you were picking up a guitar that had recently had some sort of issues or that it broke. Tell me about that. What happened?
Last night while we were rehearsing, I set my guitar down, not on its stand, leaning up against an amplifier, and it slipped and fell, and it smashed the nut, which is what kind of guides the strings into the headstock at the end of the neck on the guitar, and it cracked it. So I had an emergency repair. It was in the guitar infirmary for a few hours today. So it was nice of them to actually bump me up to the top of the list and get that done for me within a few hours, because I've got kind of a busy week with music. So. And
is all of your busy week, does it all have to do with your band?
Yeah, well, most of it's going to be with SHAPESCENES, and then I play guitar for a band in town called Pontotoc, and we're kind of a new project. Some buddies of mine started up.
I was going to ask, in doing my research, I started looking around. For some reason, it had occurred to me that one or two of you might play in other projects, so thanks for bringing that up. Tell me about that project really quick.
About Pontotoc?
Yeah.
It's kind of a four-piece, very Caius, Queens of the Stone Age influence kind of thing, and I just play guitar in that band and do a little bit of backup vocals. But it's a brand new thing, and we're just kind of in the early writing phase with that.
Another original project. Cool.
Yes.
So you're frontman for SHAPESCENES. Do you also play lead guitar, or do you have another second guitarist?
Yeah, we kind of interchange with the lead stuff. I'd say I probably play the majority of the leads, but we kind of switch back and forth with that.
Cool. Is this Pontotoc? Is that how it's pronounced?
Yeah, that's the other band, but the band that I front, SHAPESCENES, we kind of switch off on lead guitar and rhythm guitar.
Yeah, and I'm sorry, I was about to ask is in Pontotoc, is it a nice sort of change to just be playing guitar and not doing all the front stuff?
Yeah, it's cool. It gives me a little bit more opportunity to really focus on guitar stuff, and it's totally different from SHAPESCENES, so I get to explore a lot of different tones and stuff like that, which is a lot of fun.
Yeah, very nice. You and I met through Brian Wolf, who is with Fair City Fire. I know you've been on Brian's podcast.
Yes.
Is that how you guys met, or had you met before then?
No, we wound up playing a show together during South by Southwest, this past South by Southwest. We played at the backstage at El Mercado on South First. We just kind of hit it off with those guys. They're really, really friendly, and they're a hardworking band, and all those guys have really good attitude, and we just had a lot of fun playing with them, and they invited us to do the podcast, and that was a lot of fun as well. And they support us, we support them, and it's a very amicable situation. So,
Speaking of South by, I saw that SHAPESCENES had done some sort of gigging there. Had you guys done, let's see, you've been together since around 2015, right? I'm assuming the lineup has maybe changed a little bit, but have you guys done the South by before?
we've actually been together since 2013. Yeah, the first iteration of SHAPESCENES appeared in about 2013. But we didn't start playing South by Southwest until about 2015. In our first year doing it, we got a chance to play some pretty good stages in front of some fairly thick audiences. I think we did one show at Empire Garage and wound up playing in front of, somebody said about 500 or 600 people. That might be a little bit exaggerated, but it felt like 500 or 600 people, so that was good. And then, yeah, so we've been doing South by stuff every year. We've never been like an official artist for it, but that's definitely something we're focused on attaining.
You guys certainly sound of the right caliber. I was perusing at Brian's recommendation. I was perusing his podcast and looking at some of the artists that had been on there. So I was just kind of previewing some music, and I really dug what you guys are doing. It certainly kind of falls in the vein of things that I listen to, but I think for the podcast, it is sort of a genre or sound first. I've had a wide range of, I guess, styles so far, from blues, a lot of folk and Americana artists, some rock, hip hop. So yeah, you guys have a different sound. Your self genreification, or whoever helped you, if maybe someone else genreified you, but I guess I saw alt post punk new wave, which sort of, I guess, kind of sort of gets it. But
Yeah,
tell me about where the influences come from collectively, like within the band. Is there one or two of you that really drive that, or is it?
everybody kind of draws from their own inspiration. I guess I kind of guide where the sound goes a little bit. I tend to make a lot of recommendations on certain things, but for the most part, it's very collaborative and everybody really has a voice in what they're doing. As far as influences that we draw from, vocally, for me, I would say my two biggest influences and what I was really going for is I wanted to combine like Robert Smith from The Cure and Chino Moreno from Deftones and kind of bring that into one voice somehow. That was like the voice I had in my head for SHAPESCENES. It probably falls short of the glory of both of those amazing artists, but I think it works really, really well for us, and it fits the sound well, and I feel like it's unique, and I feel like other people think that about it.
Yeah, you guys sound vocally. You sound fantastic. The band sounds great. So I happen to be a drummer, but I love that. Given what you guys are playing, that you drums are very present. It sort of, to me, it gives you guys a little bit heavier of a sound. If it were not like an acoustic drum set feel that a lot of the stuff has.
Yeah. Well, we're big on the percussive side of things. I think really for us, the size of the music has been a big focus. So even you listen to a record or something of ours, and you notice that it's got a very big, massive sound to it, but I don't even really think that it captures what we're capable of doing live with that. We've been described as a wall of sound, and I think that we really focus on trying to keep that sonic presence happening.
That's a nice compliment. And it kind of tells me that if I get a chance to hear you live, that it will sound like the recordings and then some. That's cool.
Yeah, definitely.
It's dawned on me that, so I have a friend who put out his first solo record. He was in a really big metal band that has been defunct for many years, and the record's great, a lot of big production and great players on it. And I saw some rehearsal videos and a little bit of live stuff that they'd done, and it's kind of occurred to me for the first time that, and I was able to think back to some of the artists that I like who go all the way back to the 70s and started before then, the way their live stuff sounded versus some of the records. But it just dawned on me that for some bands, the production of the albums versus what they do live are such different animals, and especially if they didn't grow up together musically as a live band. For instance, my friend, they just went in, he'd been working on stuff for a long time. He collaborated with a new friend for quite a while on it, but then they pull together this group of people that forms the basis of the band that is on the record, and then another guy, at least one other guy, that ends up doing a short tour with them. But these weren't guys that had just spent a lot of time playing live. They wrote some songs, they exercised their craft in the studio. But did you guys have a lot of opportunity or much opportunity to play live? I'm assuming the answer is yes, but outside of recording the albums?
Yeah, definitely. I think we probably don't play live as much as I would like for us to, but that's something that we're looking at changing following the release of this new music. I feel like as a band, we have a lot more to offer at this point because we've really solidified our lineup a little bit. We've gone through some changes, but where it's at right now, I feel confident that it's kind of the best iteration of what SHAPESCENES has been. And then having the new EP out there, it gives us an opportunity to put something in people's hands that we're really confident in. And I don't think that I'm actually answering the question you asked me anymore, but
no, it's all good. So in case we didn't already say it for my listeners, the new EP, and tell me if I'm saying it right, is Empyrean Heaven, right?
That's correct.
And it's currently available. You can check it out on the band's website, shapescenes.com, and it's available through Bandcamp, right?
Yes. And that's actually temporary. Once we begin the promotion for the EP release, it'll stop streaming all the tracks. I think we'll probably have 1 or 2 tracks remaining available for streaming. The rest you'll still be able to purchase in advance, but before it hits Spotify, Apple Music, Pandora, all that stuff, and before the vinyl gets released, within, I would say, probably maybe a month or 2 of that happening, you won't be able to stream the full thing. So I would get out there and listen to it before we take it down.
Yeah, and if you are listening to this episode when it's released, if that still is available for streaming, I highly recommend listening to it. It's great stuff. Is this going to be, I believe the answer is yes, because I was looking around for your music in Apple Music, and hey, kudos for saying Apple Music and not iTunes, right? I guess because that's what they want everyone to say these days. But is this going to be the band's first time to publish on the major streaming services?
Yeah, we wound up recording another EP a few years back, and we worked with a really great engineer and who's also a great producer. It kind of wound up, after we got it back, we were just kind of feeling like it wasn't really the direction we wanted to go. We never wound up releasing it, but it was a really great learning experience, and it kind of showed us what we didn't want to do. And so, yeah, it really helped inform the direction we wanted to go.
Good for you guys.
So that's why it's kind of been a little bit of a delay in hitting those streaming services like that. But we wanted to make sure that we had something out there that really represented us the way we wanted to be represented.
So given that for SHAPESCENES that this is the first time you'll have some music on the major streaming services, are you guys in the midst of a big learning process, or have some of you already published some stuff? Are you getting great guidance, or how's that working out?
Our drummer Mark has been through, and our bass player Brad, they've both been through all this stuff quite a bit. Me, a little bit. I would call myself intermediate with it. Those guys have quite a bit of experience, so it's not been too stressful.
That's great. Dealing with setting up a podcast and doing anything involving Apple, or anyone for that matter, digitally, there's mostly just this big learning curve. And then, of course, I'm sure there are some gotchas if you're not careful. So that's very nice that you have a couple of guys there that help.
Yeah, definitely.
And you mentioned you're hoping, or you guys are working toward doing more live shows. When I was looking at the band online, my impression was that you weren't doing I'm speaking very generically, but you weren't doing a ton of live shows, but you're definitely playing live. What will you be doing, or what are you guys working on? How are you going to move yourselves forward from where you're at now, the average number that you might do in, say, a month or a 3-month period to where you want to go? What kind of marketing stuff or whatever you're doing are you guys employing to move that direction?
Right now, we're kind of looking at a few different PR resources to promote the EP release and do some general PR stuff for the band. I want to see us be a little bit more familiarized in the Austin community, especially with like Do 512 and the Chronicle, get them a little bit more aware of us. We were featured on KGSR last night. They played the track Empyrean Heaven from the Empyrean Heaven EP. So some more stuff like that. I'd like to see that happen. Get some attention through KUTX and 101X and some of that stuff, because I think we definitely fit in with any of what they're playing regularly. So some basic stuff, but more of it. I think quantity at this point is where we're at. I think we've got the quality part down at this point. So now just...
Among the stations that you mentioned, are some of those more indie focused and any of them more, I guess, maybe mainstream or major stations? And I ask because I'm just kind of curious about maybe to follow what you guys are doing with the, assuming you're trying to get your music on some of the indie stations, I'd be really curious to follow you and see how it goes for you.
So I think KGSR and KUTX are probably, they put a little bit more focus on local music, but 101X is definitely more the mainstream stuff, but they have a thing called Homegrown. They'll feature local bands and they do a homegrown live radio thing. They go out and they put together an event for local bands. They're usually pretty cool shows, so I kind of like to see us be a part of something like that for sure.
Cool. You play full time, or do you also split your time doing some other gig outside of music, like a day job or anything like that?
Oh yeah. I've got plenty of irons and many fires.
And what about the other guys?
They are all working professionals.
Okay, yeah, that's cool. Do you know who Ray Prim is out of Boston?
I'm not familiar with that name, actually.
Brian Wolf, who we talked about earlier, is acquainted with him. He was telling me when we spoke he was a fan of, I guess he's kind of a soul and rock. He does everything from a 7-piece band configuration down to solo acoustic shows. He's got many configurations. But I had him on the show somewhat recently because his name came up in another interview from someone who'd met him and said straight up to me during the interview, I met this guy, Ray Prim. He's really got it going on, the whole package. And I think I'm going to follow his formula. He's got a job. He's been working. I never even got to asking him what he does for his day job. And he plays less shows. He focuses on writing, but he plays the shows he wants to and so forth. But anyway, I was just asking him, become a little more curious with the musicians and artists I speak to, are you playing full time? How long have you been doing that? And what's that been like? But I feel like I've been running into several of you in Austin who split your time between working some professional gig during the day and then doing pro music on the weekends or whenever you guys can squeeze it in. So anyway, it's great that you guys are writing all this cool original music and getting out and playing. So my impression was that you were just a full-time musician and nothing else, just from looking at you online.
Yeah. I feel like I do that intentionally so that it sort of, that's what I'm pushing. That's what I use social media for, is to promote the band. So it kind of lends itself to me only appearing that way in social media. But I definitely do a little bit of bartending. I do some freelance production work. I do audio, video, lighting stuff. I used to go out and tour doing that stuff. And then I even do some freelance carpentry and some things like that. So
that's cool. Lots of creative stuff.
Yeah.
And I noticed that you have a background, some sort of studio background. I don't know if you did engineering or production or what kind of stuff you did, but you used to work for, and maybe you still do, a local studio. Is that right?
Mixture recording studio. Yeah, I think that there was probably some other stuff on there. I used to work in a news studio doing production work.
That's cool. Has any of that stuff, well, I'm assuming Mixture recording studio lends itself well to what you do in the band and musically in general. Does the other media gig that you mentioned, does it happen to lend itself to what you're doing in SHAPESCENES at all?
No, I mean, that's stuff from the past. Most of that's before SHAPESCENES even existed, so.
Just experience-wise, though, not really just...
Oh, yeah, experience-wise, for sure. I mean, any of that production stuff is definitely useful knowledge for being a recording artist.
Yeah, cool. I assumed as much, but just...
Or a live artist as well. I mean, any of my audio, video, lighting, live stuff that I've done has definitely helped out with any production stuff that we've set up for Shape Scenes beyond what a venue already has. I'll go out and get intelligent lighting for us and a console and stuff, and I can rig all that stuff up and program it and have it ready to go. Have somebody come in that I trust to run a lighting console, and they can run a light show for us while we play live. So
that is a sweet bit of knowledge for a bandmate to have.
yeah.
Very cool. I wanted to ask you, because we sort of broached the topic a little bit, but on the marketing front for you guys and the PR stuff that you look at, like, is this something that you focus your time on? Do you have a couple of the bandmates helping you out with it, or how do you guys manage that stuff?
We really focus on it with two of us for the most part. It comes from my drummer, Mark, and I tend to focus on it the most. Our bass player, Brad, he's pretty good at helping out with the social media side of things, and he's been in Austin playing music for 20 plus years, and he's garnered a lot of connections and stuff as far as being able to produce live shows for us. And even the thing that happened on KGSR was through his connection with Loris that works there. So me, Mark, Brad, we're the primary guys as far as all that stuff is concerned.
That's cool. Most of the band, that's nice.
Yeah.
Some of the guys I've spoken with in the past, in one case in particular I'm thinking of, they do a great job of marketing, and it really just appears to be one guy that's doing all of it. And I always love to hear more of what your situation is, because it's easier to sustain. Nobody gets burned out as easy. But
Yeah, for sure.
So that's very cool. I didn't realize the KGSR thing had happened so recently. I had put it into my notes. So you said they're kind of a local indie focused station. You had a prior relationship with KUTX. Have you guys done anything with them yet, or they're on the radar?
They're on the radar. A while back, they featured a song of ours about 3 years back. I think it was about that long ago. And they've mentioned us as far as shows are concerned a few times. But it's been a while, and the song that I was talking to you about, Urgency, is something that I would really like to hear come through on KUTX.
That sounds like a station maybe that you're going to have to make some new relationships with.
Yeah, I think we're on their radar too.
Oh, good. That's cool.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure they're aware of us. It's just one of those things that I feel like getting some professional PR help might boost that a little bit. So
you've mentioned PR a couple of times. When you refer to PR, in the things that you're thinking you guys may do, are you thinking about bringing someone who specifically does PR, or are you more referring to it in a generic sense of things that you guys are going to do yourselves?
Definitely someone who does it. We're DIY to a certain point, but I think finding a resource that, especially somebody who specifically works with artists or musicians, for us, that's probably a better way to go. Especially if it on a consulting level, like if they could, even if we were just being advised on things that we could be doing or doing better, something in that capacity, I think is what we're looking at.
Now I want to ask, and purely for my own, not just me, but anyone listening too, but my own education, have you observed any of your peers in the area doing exactly what you just described, what you think would be good for you guys? And generally,
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so then I assume that generally speaking, that often ends up in, or brings good results. Maybe sometimes, for various reasons, it doesn't, but generally it works out pretty well.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it definitely can't hurt. That's for sure. But our thing is we're just now kind of at the point where we've produced a product that we're very confident in and really enjoy ourselves. And like our lineup's kind of the most solid that it's been, and all the pieces are right for it at this point. So that's the next move, and I feel like at this point it's a good investment for us.
Yeah, I think you guys sound amazing. So I'm totally with you. What you just said, the pieces have come together for you. It sounds like. And then you guys already have contacts that do PR. How will you seek them out if you don't?
We have a few different resources. I mean, we've got friends and bands that are going through certain people, and then if you're in the Austin music scene, usually
you know somebody, huh?
generally made aware of the people out there that are doing this stuff. So
yeah,
because they put on events all the time with their bands that they represent. And
I see.
yeah, so we're just kind of looking at a few things and debating over what our best fit is.
Sure. And from the knowledge that you guys have gained and observations that you've made in the community there, you'd mentioned consulting basis type work as a possibly good option for you. Is that the direction that you're likely to go, or just you're still sort of kicking around the different ways that you might do it at this point?
Yeah, I guess just kind of kicking it around.
Sure.
And I think once you hire a PR company or something like that, I think it's all kind of generally speaking, it's kind of an all-in-one kind of thing. So we would be getting the consulting happening, and then they would obviously be doing some footwork themselves to get things out there.
Do you guys have plans to do a tour outside of the area with the release of the album?
Yes, so that's part of our plan for the fall, and we're currently looking at the booking for San Antonio, Fort Worth, and Dallas, and we have some connections out in those places to make sure those shows happen. But we would like to, I think what we talked about is get at least 6 out-of-town shows this fall, also do some local stuff, but definitely thicken up our live presence overall. Because I think for a while there, we were averaging anywhere from 15 to 25 shows a year for a couple of years. So I'd like to see us triple that, honestly. But playing in Austin and just playing in Austin, you really don't want to wear out your welcome. I feel like it's not a good idea for a band to be playing 3 or 4 times a month in the same city, because people will just stop showing up.
Yeah, I can understand.
Yeah.
It sounds like at least some of the band's fairly well seasoned with touring. Is it kind of a mix? Some of you, yes, some of you not as much, have played more locally, or?
I think there's only one guy in the band who hasn't really done much of that, much touring stuff. So I'd like to get him broken in with that for sure.
Yeah, you'll show him the ropes, I'm sure. I think it was probably just on Facebook, but I noticed that you do some support, and to what extent I don't really know, other than just seeing that you support the organization. But I felt like it might be cool for us to talk about, if your game is the Sims Foundation.
Yeah, the Sims Foundation's an awesome organization, and I went through HAM first, the Health Alliance for Austin Musicians, which they're another excellent organization, great resource for Austin musicians. But yeah, my support with Sims came from my own mental health struggles, and they provided me with some excellent mental health care. I don't know what else to say about it, really, but they were there for me when I really, really needed some help. So
I'd noticed that you had posted something about them, and it said sort of extended a hand if anyone was ever in need, and I thought that was pretty cool, and especially the time that we happened to be chatting this evening. There's been a lot in the news about mental health, I think.
Yeah, definitely.
It happens all around us among many people we know, but I think when we see big celebrities, especially when we see a couple in a week or two period of time, it sort of reminds everyone that it's such a big deal. And these organizations that you're talking about are just a really small handful that I've become aware of that are focused on musicians, which is kind of cool. Everyone and anyone of any walk of life can certainly be in need, I'm sure, in these areas. So anyway, I thought it was really cool, and thanks for talking about it a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. And the thing that Sims talks about is musicians are actually very prone to having mental health issues, and a lot of times won't reach out. And whenever I reached out to them, it was kind of the first time in my life where I was in a situation where I really knew that I needed help, and I really knew that if I didn't get it, that things were going to be worse. Or I felt like that at the time, and that's kind of typical of someone who's struggling like that, to think that way. But I reached out to them, and they hooked me up with some awesome providers, and currently talking to me right now, I'm in one of the best places I've been in my entire life is where my mental health is concerned. So they were huge in helping me get through some serious things.
Well, cool. I'm really happy to hear that. And I don't know much about the organization. I was about to ask you, what does it stand for? But is it actually a person's name?
It is.
Sims Ellison?
Yeah, it is the name. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so anyone who's listening, simsfoundation.org if you're curious. And the other organization you mentioned, which I was not familiar with, HAAM?
HAAM. Yeah, everybody calls it HAM, but it's Health Alliance for Austin Musicians.
Okay. That's cool. Yeah. I'm just kind of see if I can find them. I don't know what their website is, but Health Alliance for Austin Musicians, I think, will be a great place to search for anyone that's kind of curious about them. So I was thinking this week, as a matter of fact, and these weren't even music people, but certainly creative people that were in the news recently. It feels to me that we're losing great artists just in music alone. Just about every month you can see someone. I don't really talk about that specifically on the show, but I mean, as an overarching theme with mental health, I think it's something, well, obviously very important, and perhaps something I'll spend more time on in the future in the right situations.
Definitely. Well, like I said, I hadn't really ever been in a situation like that before in my life. And whenever it happened, it opened me up to it a lot. And I feel like it's really, really important to be able to talk about, and people need to learn to become comfortable with talking about it because it's real and it needs to be observed and accepted and dealt with in a healthy way. We as a society kind of shut ourselves off from it. And there are people out there who don't even believe that it exists, but it certainly does because I've experienced it. And I want to encourage anybody out there to be upfront with it and to be open with it and to not be afraid to get the help you need if you feel like you need help.
Yeah, good advice, man. I sort of recognize that all you guys want to be gracious and show everyone love, but off the top of your head, what are some of your favorite venues to play locally there?
Favorite venues off the top of my head, first would probably be Stubbs. And a big part of that is because a guy named Daniel Stapleton, who actually mastered our EP, does the sound there. And Danny is a fantastic guy. He's a fantastic sound engineer. He loves working with us and he always makes us sound great. So he really cares about his job. So that's Stubbs. So definitely one of our favorite places to play. I love playing Mohawk, the intimate vibe there. And I don't know, it's just loud and gritty in there. And yeah, it's just a lot of fun to play in that room. Empire's great. I love the production value at Empire. I would say those probably my top three. And actually, the backstage at El Mercado is awesome too. They have great lighting, great audio. The guys that do production there really, really love us and do a fantastic job. And it's always a lot of fun to work with them. So we'll go with those four.
Great. God, I love a good sound guy too. That's cool. Yeah. Well, maybe some places that when I finally get back out to Austin, I can visit. And I will definitely hunt you down for a cup of coffee or whatever we may want to indulge in if I can find you when, if our schedules can collide when I come into town. I have a few people I want to see now. I'm even envisioning, like, gosh, I've just a handful of people to interview with. I thought, God, it would be fun to not only get together with some of you one on one and over coffee or whatever, but it'd also be fun to get together as a group. Some of you who don't know each other and just kind of hang out a little bit.
Yeah, that would be cool.
Yeah. All right. So, do I have it right that people can best find you online at shapescenes.com?
Yeah, if you want to listen to the music and get a little info about us and even link to our social media, shapescenes.com.
Yep. And you guys are a little bit of everywhere online. So, good job on the website and the social presence and all that stuff. Man, thank you for taking time out to chat with me here for the podcast. I will definitely stay in touch.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Roberto.
Yeah, man. Hey, thanks again for listening. The Unstarving Musicians podcast is edited for sound and content quality by Juan Perez. The intro-outro track is Alarm Clocks, written and performed by Redwood. That's me on drums. Be sure to visit the show notes for this and any other episode for links and exclusive tidbits and offers. You can find them at unstarvingmusician.com/podcast. Lastly, visit unstarvingmusician.com/resources for cool stuff that I personally use and or recommend to my fellow musicians and artistic types. With much gratitude, peace, love, and more cowbell.